this was always going to be an intriguing matchup, obviously. Max Allegri against Unai Emery, a manager that's very experienced in Europe. Well, both of them, right? But Unai Emery has never really gone beyond the round of 16 in the Champions League. He visits Juventus and 3-0 on the night. Unbelievable. Michael, let's begin with you. What did you expect in this game? And now I guess it was a dose of Max Allegri's own medicine from Unai Emery. Is that what you saw?
I thought it was a dose of Unai Emery's own medicine on Max Allegri, because this is the DNA of Villarreal. This is the DNA of Unai Emery, playing with these mid-table at times La Liga teams when he gets into European competition. This is how he ended up winning the Europa League, is defense first. It was a battle of the 4-4-2 system. Juve in the 4-4-2, Villarreal in the 4-4-2, and the goal of the game was do not allow anything centrally. And I thought Juve were very poor in the final third in terms of quality. Vlahovic and Morata, they were off on the night. I think of the chance in the 15th minute where neither of them looked like they wanted to score the goal. Vlahovic with the back heel, Morata was there, didn't want to take the shot. Cuadrado tried to do something fancy, and it's, come on, man. You play for one of the biggest clubs in Europe, one of the biggest clubs in Italy, and for the last 8-9 years, the biggest team in Italy. You get paid the big bucks to smash that in the back of the net. When you don't do that at this stage of Champions League soccer, you will get punished. It doesn't matter if the other team is defensive. They have the quality, and I was waiting for Moreno to come in the game, and when he came, he delivered.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I must be something of like a resident expert on like mental capitulations in the Champions League by this point, but it just really feels like Juve kind of like froze at that moment when they conceded, because they'd kind of been that pressure building up on them, knowing that they need to get the goal if they're going to advance. And then sort of thinking like, okay, we're going to see this out at 0-0 and go to extra time. And then suddenly Villarreal, they take the lead, and then Juve, it's like it's taken all of the wind out of them. They know that it's going to be this massive uphill task for them to even get a goal to force it to extra time. And they know that they need to score twice if they want to even kill it before the end of the 90 minutes. So for me, it was just interesting to see that happening. It must have felt great for Unai Emery to not be on the receiving end of that sort of capitulation, and instead, just watching the Juve players, basically just giving up in that final 12 minutes. I mean, there was no need for Juve to get beaten 3-0. Sure, 1-0, maybe 2-0, but to concede 3 goals in the space of 12 minutes. I think that just showed that they really sort of switched off after conceding that goal and basically threw in the towel, which I think for Allegri would be really disappointing. But I also think as well, had Juve gone through it, probably would have papered over some of the cracks. We've seen a bit of a resurgence from them in Serie A in recent weeks, but there's a lot of work to do with this Juve squad. I mean, there's quite a few teams in Europe, still progressing in the Champions League, like Real, for example, where despite the fact that they're going deep, there is still a major overhaul needed in terms of personnel. And I think Juve are going to be busy this summer because there's a lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily dead wood, but players that don't necessarily fit right in that squad. Certainly not with Allegri in charge.
Yeah, it's tough. I think that the 3-0 result, and I love what Mike and JJ have said about this, it isn't reflective of the game. I mean, the first half, Juve had some really clear-cut chances. Rui in goal for Villarreal was excellent. And they didn't take those chances. And we talked about it. Vlahovic, that's why they bought him. You don't pay the amount of money for him not to step up and score those goals. But this isn't isolated to Vlahovic. This is the 4th consecutive time that they've been knocked out in the round of 16 against inferior.
It's also only his second Champions League game.
Right. So you got to take that into consideration too. This is a new thing for Vlahovic, and he started off well, scoring in the first 30 seconds. And he was busy today. I thought he was busy. He was direct. I liked the first half from Juve. I'll just throw it out there and say I actually liked the way that they played. I assumed they were going to sit back because they're sometimes cautious under Allegri, but they didn't. And I was like, all right, this is a Juve team I can maybe watch a little bit more because they're not making it hard for me to watch them. But in the second half, something happened. And you're right, JJ, when that penalty happens, they just dropped off. And I think it just proved that Rugani never living up to his potential. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to Bonucci and Chiellini. Both of those guys were out. They missed their presence. McKennie, I think, could have done really well in those half spaces and take those chances and take those risks that maybe some of the other midfielders for Juve don't do consistently. We saw it a little bit from Locatelli and Rabiot today, and even Archer tried to do something. Zachary, I think, was missed. And then if they had Chiesa, I mean, if you have Dybala comes off the bench, my one issue here, they have some quality, and you're right, there's going to have to be some changes this summer. But I don't understand why Allegri waited until the 69th minute to make his first sub. It was clear that whatever they were trying to do offensively, it wasn't working. So you got to bring somebody on. And if you got Dybala and you're waiting to give him, or the 79th minute he brought him in, like you give him 10 minutes, you give Dybala 10 minutes. Like, dude, give that guy at least 30 to go out there. Even if he's not 100%, he still has a little bit of that magic that some of your other midfielders don't. And I thought that was a big mistake. And I don't know. I think Allegri got some of this wrong, but it's unfortunate they didn't take their chances. Fair play to Villarreal. It looked very eerily similar to the Europa League final last season against Manchester United, where everybody sacked behind the ball, and then Gerard Moreno scored on a set piece, and they took their one chance and tried to force players that aren't very good with playing it to try to play out of the back. I'm looking at you, Lindelof and Bailly, and it worked, right? They got the penalties and they made it work. But it's tough. It's tough. Go ahead, take it. I was going to say that
there's an argument to be, there's an, I think a lot of the argument is going to be, well, Juventus were missing some key players. Well, so were Villarreal, actually, because Moreno didn't come in until later, by the way. Allegri, by the way, said after the game, we played well for 75 minutes. Unfortunately, in football, there are such situations. You have to accept it. It's interesting, that kind of language there. I see it as simple as this. I agree, Jimmy. I think Juventus's first half situation was actually decent. It's just that overall, Unai Emery was compact. They figured it out. And when you have somebody like Arnaut Danjuma, who, by the way, has been really good in this competition, then, anything can happen. The fact is, and Michael, you can end it here, the fact is no Serie A team in the quarterfinals. That's, for all the successes that we're talking about, how well Italian teams are doing, etc. And of course, we don't want to, SHIT on our own parade because we have the rights to the Serie A. But no Italian teams in the final eight is a big deal.
Hey, what do the Italians do? That's what I found myself doing at the final whistle. This, I think it's twofold. This is because Serie A, for the first time in almost a decade, is competitive. These teams are going after each other week in and week out now, playing big games. Every game or every other game is a big game because they're playing for Champions League soccer, or the title is competitive. And that's going to take the wind out of your sails a bit. That's going to tire you out. Juve is playing to get back in the title race, kind of, but they're playing for their Champions League lives in the league to make sure they can have Champions League soccer.
Just to add something to that, Michael, very quickly, just to remind everybody, since the turn of 2022, Juventus have been the best team in Serie A. They got 22 points. They've actually undefeated in the last 15. They've been doing really well. I mean, Villarreal, okay, a team from another division, but they're Villarreal, with all due respect. It's not Real Madrid. It's not even Barcelona. Like, how is it possible that you lose 3-0 against, a team that's, not doing that high up? Jimmy, you can jump in here. Listen, I
get that. They haven't lost at home, and it was to Atalanta since November 27th. It was a 1-0 loss. That's the last time they've lost at home.
Things were looking good. Yeah.
But that's quite a significant amount of time. Plus, they had a pretty successful transfer window, all things considered, and had to deal with some significant injuries. And I'm looking at Chiesa in particular. I think that Juve's issues are bigger than this particular season. When we look at the knockout round, since they signed Cristiano Ronaldo 3 years ago, they lost to Lyon, they lost to Porto, they lost to Ajax, and they now lost to Villarreal. On paper, based on history, they should be better than all of those teams, and they just weren't. And so is that reflective of just this group of players, or is it something bigger? That's something to take into consideration. Also, with Juve being one of the clubs that's spearheading the Super League, I will laugh my goddamn ass off when they get bounced early in the future Super League, and then they're going to want to create a Super League so that only they can win it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know what Juve's plan is, but I don't know if it's working out too well.
Yeah, there definitely is like an element of poetic justice that it's sort of not one of the real elite Spanish teams, that has dumped Juve out, given their views on, those smaller teams like, the likes of Atalanta, competing and having success in Europe. But I think, again, this brings me back to my point where, this is a new Juve. They're trying to rejuvenate themselves, for want of a better word, or not.
It's good.
it's they're rebuilding themselves. There's no Paratici to oversee the transfer window anymore. Like I said, there's still quite a few players that they're either going to have to move on or move on from, because there's still so many aging figures in that squad. There's question marks over Dybala's future with his contract situation, and despite his age, is he a player that Juve wants to try and build with moving forward? Chiesa, the injury, Jimmy's right, hugely important given how influential he was. So there's a lot of work to do, and I think that it was only natural that Juve weren't suddenly going to get rid of Cristiano Ronaldo and just win the Serie A title, go on a deep run in the Champions League and potentially go all the way and win it. It's going to take time to rebuild, and now they've committed to Allegri. They're going to have to do it his way.
Yeah, Michael, wrap it up. As Serie A teams no longer in the Champions League, what do you make of it?
I think it's disappointing, especially because the excitement of Serie A action and how competitive Serie A is. Again, I thought Juve were going to have enough quality, especially with the chances they created. They should have put them to the sword in the first half. If they get a goal, Villarreal is a stingy team, and they're a team of character. Villarreal, I think their game plan was to keep it 0-0 as long as possible, like they showed, and maybe get one goal. But the pressure is just mounting too much on Juventus to deliver in both the league and the Champions League. Mind you, the Champions League is still their most coveted trophy, and I think it's just too much for them right now, given the players that they have.